It's a really frustrating thing that I have noticed for a lot of women in America right now is that something is keeping you from moving abroad even though you want to. And that something is your husband. The thing that is keeping many women who would like to move abroad from moving abroad is that their husband is not on board. And I've been there, actually. I've been there. And so I have some ideas for you. I'll share a little bit about my own story. I hope it helps you. The reason I know that many women want to move abroad is because there are those crazy articles out there that talk about how 44% of women, I think between the age of 15 and 44, American women want to move abroad and maybe not come back. That's significant. It's really an indictment against America right there. The women want to leave. So anyway, that's a huge number. Meanwhile, a lot of the women in those categories are married and have husbands who do not seem interested at all in moving. And I know this because I've interacted with a lot of people online, a lot of women who are like, my husband doesn't want to go. I really want to go. This is a big challenge right now. And, it makes sense. I think women feel the stress of what is going on, both on behalf of themselves in their own bodies and their own lived experiences. And then also, if those women happen to be mothers or are just caring about humanity, paying attention to all the injustice that is going on as America continues its very fast descent into authoritarianism. The women are paying attention, and the women don't want to live in an authoritarian country. And maybe a lot of the women are like me, and they have this long-term dream to live abroad, and then life happened, and then they just never got to pursue that for whatever reason, or never believed that they were able to pursue that. I know that the world is so overwhelming, especially if you are a woman in America, if you are a mom in America. I know it's too much. It's too much right now. But I don't want to see you stuck. I don't want to see you stuck forever. I don't want to see you saying, now it's too late. I think there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of women I hear saying, I'm afraid I'm not going to figure it out before it's too late. Then we're going to put this earlier. At the very least, after you have that conversation, after you have those conversations where you're trying to get on the same page, at the very least, I recommend that you have an emergency exit plan. That simply means that you're going to figure out what resources you have available to you, figure out where your passport will take you, and make a plan if you need to leave. And figure out your line in the sand. A friend of mine, her line in the sand was that she has a child who was born in China, and she was living in Minnesota, and the people from the Frozen Water Army were going around neighborhoods asking where the Asian people lived. And that was her line in the sand, so she left the state. So I just want you to know, what is my line in the sand, my personal line in the sand. Have a conversation with your partner or spouse about that. Also, take the time to make an emergency exit plan. I have given you the resources that you need. They are below in the link in my video description, but make yourself an emergency exit plan. at least you know you have a backup plan instead of just feeling this like doom and gloom cloud above your head, and the fact that you're not feeling on the same page with your partner. Even for your own self, figure out your emergency exit plan. If you never have to use it, that's great. If you do have to use it, make it, have it just in case. Husbands and the men, the male partners, I guess, are just like, I'm sure there's a lot of reasons. I'm sure there's some of them who are paying attention and are in the same category that my husband was in a decade ago when we were considering a move abroad and ended up deciding to just internationally travel more for a while before we even took off moving abroad. I'm sure that there are a lot of men who are in the same category that he was, which is, I don't have any idea how to make this work. I think there are a lot of husbands who may be reluctant because they don't want to live abroad, but there's some who maybe would be open to it, and yet they're like my husband, and he was just being very practical. Like, I was wanting to follow a dream, and I was like, we'll figure it out, we'll make it work, which I don't necessarily recommend that, but I'm just saying, like, this is where we were coming from. Although in my mind, that dream was move abroad with an international transfer with this company. So even like I had a narrow mindset of what was possible at that time. Most of the time with a move abroad, you really have to just start taking steps and you figure it out. Like, you need to have money. You need to have like money for backup. You need to know how you think you're going to make your money. So I'm not saying if you have zero money that you should just, oh, no problem, you'll figure it out. That's a bad idea. Don't do that. Please don't do that. Have money. Have a savings account. But I was more open and like, let's figure out how to make this work. And he was more practical, like, well, this isn't going to work because this, that, or the other. Or, like, he was just concerned, rightly so. And I'm sure that there's a lot of guys who are in that situation. So there's the husbands who maybe would be willing to go, but they're not sure how it's going to work. Then there's the husbands who are clueless about how bad it is for women and how bad it is for their children as we look into the future of America under an authoritarian regime. I've lived in Eastern Europe. I like history. I pay attention. I know that that is not the future that I want for my kids. I also know that my particular variety of children and combination of children and their needs and their race and their neurodivergence, etc., those things are not safe realities for that in America as it stands today. I do think there's a lot of spouses who aren't really tracking that, especially men who are white. We don't have to talk all the reasons, but in my particular circumstance, I will tell you what helped us. And it's not what you think. The thing that I would recommend to all couples, this isn't necessarily going to get your husband to move abroad, but it's going to benefit you in your partnership or your marriage regardless. And that is working together to figure out what your vision is for your family or for yourselves as a couple. Like, what do we want? What do we not want? Is what we're doing right now in alignment with what we want, like your real values? And so we did a course at the time. It doesn't exist anymore. It just helped us sort through, what do we really value? What lights us up? How are we put together as individuals and as a couple and as a family? What are the things that we really want for our family to experience together? It just asks a lot of really good questions. And I think doing that kind of activity together taking some time to get on the same page, taking some time to have some conversations about like, what do we want here? Regardless of where you end up, I mean, this gives you the opportunity as a woman to say, this is what I want. I want to leave. It gives you the chance to be honest about that. It also gives you the chance to understand, well, why do I want to leave? What are the things I'm imagining? What are the things that I would like to have be true in my life? What are the things that I would like for my children if I have children? What do I want out of life is really the question. And Andrew and I did a course like that, and we worked through it, and it gave us lots of good conversation topics. And ultimately for us, we decided we at least wanted to travel internationally more or at all with our children. And we actually downsized. We sold our nice house in a nice neighborhood and we downsized to a smaller place that we rented. And that saved us over $700 a month. And so between that and points, like credit card points, so we were just using the credit cards for our regular spending, which is a lot when you have a family of 7. We combined those and then we got real curious and flexible about travel. And instead of saying like, we have to take a vacation on this day to this place and this is what we want and blah, blah, blah. Like instead of doing that, we like looked for where the good plane tickets were to. We're like, okay, well, we found a really great deal to China. So we took our first international trip to China. But like those things couldn't have happened if we hadn't really spent time together figuring out like what do we care about and then assessing our lives based on that. And so I think one of the best things that you can do, even if it doesn't end you up moving abroad, even though that's a longing of yours and my heart hurts that you're in this place where you're not on the same page. That's so painful. And I have definitely been there with many things in my marriage. At the very least, it's going to benefit your family. It's going to benefit your marriage or your partnership if you are on the same page and you have individual visions and a common vision that you can pursue together. That's never going to be a waste of time. So don't just keep being frustrated. Instead, I would encourage you to engage your reluctant spouse with the reality of where you're at, to engage him in conversation, to work through some things together. Honestly, I think I'm going to make some tools for this because it was truly so helpful for us. So if that's something that you'd like to get on the list for, if you would like resources to help you get on the same page and do some visioning with your spouse, go ahead and just comment below and let me know if that's something that you're interested in. Because I probably am going to create that because I know that it was positively life-changing for us. The other thing, a friend of mine, she had a really hard conversation with her spouse. Like she had been talking about moving abroad and her desire for it. And at some point she just went like, I'm going. I'm ready. I'm going. I'm figuring this out. And then her husband was like caught off guard, even though she'd been talking about it for months and months, or maybe years. I think she'd been talking about it for years. And I guess sometimes husbands aren't like really, they don't believe you, which that's a whole nother problem. Or they're not really tuned in, or they think you're just dreaming, or they're not taking you seriously. So for her, what it took was this very hard conversation where she was like, I'm going. And he was just caught off guard and was like, you want to get a divorce? And she was like, no, I don't. I mean, I just think so many people need to have this conversation, which is not a fun conversation to have. I feel bad for the guy. I feel bad for the woman. She was like, no, I don't want a divorce. Like, I just want to go. I need to go. I need to get out of here. And sometimes I think it's going to take that kind of level of conversation to sort of help your spouse understand how seriously this matters to you. So husbands and male partners, please don't come after me. Sometimes a hard conversation is what is in order, especially when the stakes are so high and there are women whose hearts are just breaking over what is going on in America and are just desperate to get a break and get out. And if that is possible for you, if you can figure it out, and if you have resources, which you usually have more resources than you think, things are usually less expensive in other places than you think. So if you have a savings, if you have a remote income, like consider it for sure. Have the hard conversations because this is your life. This is your life and you are partnered, and so it's their life as well. If you are really wanting to go, do yourself the favor of having the hard conversations. I'm really sorry. I know that is so hard. I know it's just another weight in your mind. And so I just encourage you to do what you need to do to feel like you have a plan. I'm not trying to break apart marriages here. Some marriages probably need to be broken apart. I have 3 friends who are in various parts of their divorce. Those divorces absolutely needed to happen. But I really hope that the takeaway from this video is not that you need to leave America and leave your husband, but that the takeaway is that you can leave America with your husband, or at least have a plan to leave America that helps you feel more at ease, and that you can have some conversations to be on the same page, to figure out the things that they are excited about in life and figure out the things that you're excited about and build a vision together. Even if you've done that before, the world looks a lot different probably than the last time that you had these kind of conversations. And there is no more important thing than to be on the same page right now. If you want some resources for that, let me know. Comment for me. If you just want to tell me how hard it is, comment about that. And I will keep talking about hard stuff if this is a topic that is really on point for you right now. Go ahead and subscribe, and I'll just keep talking about this. I'll keep trying to encourage you. But I made it through. My husband loves living abroad now. He can't imagine if we had stayed. And that was not the case a decade ago. A decade ago, he couldn't have imagined leaving. And so that's my story.